is 9:30-ish on a Thursday night, and you are tuned into Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. I hate to do my own bell tonight. This is ChipChat. Welcome to ChipChat. I'm Chip. I'm kind of alone. I'm not really alone. I'm never really alone. Brian's always here. Hey, Brian. He's maybe here. Brian's thinking about if he really wants to be here or not.
Hello, I'm here.
Yes.
Got a lot of buttons to push.
Yeah, Brian's got his regular job to do. Andy has to be like backup Tez. Tez is on assignment.
Yes,
tonight.
I'm broke Tez. Yeah.
Where are we? Where is Tez on his assignment? Do we know?
I think he's in Chinchilla.
Chinchilla?
I think so.
Where is Chinchilla?
I have no idea. That's what he
Near
said.
Coachella.
Probably.
Wherever he is on assignment. And when he gets back, we're going to ask him about the assignment.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has a lot of assignments. And he'll bring a book.
He will bring a book.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, tonight we're going to talk to somebody who makes audiobooks.
Ooh.
Yeah. His name is James Gray. We're going to talk to him a little bit later. Also, it's been a pretty stormy week, Brian. Stormy week. We're talking about the weather. Yeah. Stormy week. We're going to get, you ready for this one?
What?
Nonsensical. Bad.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go.
We'll have stupid Republican tricks, always a good segment, with a side of We Told You So.
Mm-hmm.
And then Worms on the Brain. New segment.
Okay.
To talk about brain worms. Do you know about brain worms? Have you ever had a brain worm?
No, but I think I saw one on Star Trek episode, The Wrath of Khan once.
Yeah, there you go. So it's like that,
Okay.
except maybe worse.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
what's worse than those things? The Wrath of Khan. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, no, it can get worse.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, and we'll have a new Florida or Not. We're going to make James play Florida or Not.
Oh, okay.
So it's gonna be...
Actually, I didn't read all of it.
So you can play too.
I can probably play too.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Other things, we're going to do some other segments, some of our regular stuff.
Mm.
The weather here has been pretty nasty. It's been kind of rainy, gloomy.
Unless you're in Texas.
Well, we're not in Texas. We're in D.C.
Yeah.
But so various things. But the important thing is I mowed my back lawn this afternoon in the 2-hour span of when it was dry enough and enough to do it. And I did it in an hour. It's probably the fastest I've ever mowed my lawn. I didn't do a good job. I'll be very honest about that. It's not the best edge up I've ever given my backyard. But the grass is no longer as tall as my children. So they can safely play back there, and I won't lose them.
Okay.
Which is the goal.
All right.
Not to lose the kid.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever have kids, the back lawn becomes a very important thing.
Understandable.
Yeah. It's where all the ticks live.
Yes. Yes.
They can get on the children. So you
Yes.
have to pay attention. All right. Do you have a word?
I have a word.
Okay. We're going to ask you about some stuff later because we have a segment about Brian.
About me. It's always about me.
Yeah, it's always about Brian. All right. So sit back, grab some
Exotica.
It's lawnmower time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and Beyond.
Sweeps.
Sweeps. All right, well, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me tonight is Brian.
Hello.
Hello. That's a very appropriate way to get to this next segment. So this next segment is called Sad Stuff First this time. Last week, we bummed everybody out sort of mid-show by talking about serious stuff. We're going to get some of it out of the way tonight. Don't worry. There'll be more awful stuff to talk about later. Gonna be sad for everybody. All right. So let's just say second least favorite segment that we keep having to do, which is Israel updates. So what's going on in Israel? There's a lot. Basically, all of the things that you could imagine are happening simultaneously. So here's what happened. The Israelis warned everybody in Rafah to get the hell out of the way because they're going to invade and kill everybody and smash everything. And then they're like, go to this place. And they're like, there's no place. We can't get there. We don't have any fuel. And also that place is crowded. And the Israelis were like, oh, well, we have a solution. And so they seized the Rafah border crossing with like special forces or something. They didn't go in full throttle. And they, you know, in the midst of that, they're like talking about a ceasefire. And then they bombed everything. And then they're like, but maybe a ceasefire. And then they brought in a bunch of tanks and are all sitting around the outside of Rafah. Like, it's a very topsy-turvy sort of situation. And then the other side of this is that the Biden administration is tired of BB shit. And they're like, look, dude, we don't want you going in, like, rolling tanks into Rafah and killing everybody. And Netanyahu was like, I'm going to do what I want. And Joey B was like, the fuck you are, not without some big ass bombs, you're not. So he's like, that's it. I'm not giving you any more of these very specific bombs. So he said no 2,000 pounders, which basically are not a defensive weapon. Let's be honest. Those are block clearers. He said he was going to hold back on some of the 500 pounders as well. And then also the JDAMs, which is the sort of smart system that converts dumb bombs into smart bombs. And so, you know, all those kids hollering at MIT and Columbia and GW and wherever else, they got a little of what they were asking for. Don't supply the Israelis with, you know, weapons. It's only certain weapons. You know, they're very clear that the stuff for the Iron Dome, they're still getting. And the intelligence and stuff, they're still getting. As a matter of fact, when the Pentagon called the Israelis and said, don't go into Rafah, they were like, well, what else are we supposed to do? And the Pentagon's like, we will basically plan anything you want that isn't that for you. We'll give you all the intel. We'll give you all the satellites. We'll give you anything you want. We'll help you logistics, whatever. Just don't do that thing. And they're like, nah. Yeah. So Ben-Gvir, who's a crazy racist terrorist, was like, oh, Hamas loves Joe Biden. Not a good way to try to get your weapons back there, Haas. Let's see. What else happened? Some of the other right-wing nut jobs in that government were like, if you take away our smart bombs, we're just going to use dumb bombs and kill even more people. You may be missing the message a little bit. And in the midst of all of this, there's a meeting in Cairo going on right now. Bill Burns, CIA director, who's been the American representative through most of this, is in Cairo. The Israelis actually sent a delegation to Cairo. The Egyptians are helping. The Qataris are helping. Hamas's delegation is there. They're trying to work out a ceasefire. The ceasefire has been like, the Israelis are like, all right, here's the deal. Hamas is like, nah, we're not going to take that deal. Then Hamas was like, all right, we accept the deal. And everybody was like, oh, well, that's pretty good. What is it that you agreed to? And then the Israelis looked at it and they're like, no, not even close. So, like, they're really far apart, but also really close.
Like most negotiations are.
Yeah. So if you think about this in like every other negotiation we've sort of ever seen, like, and it's terrible to reduce it to this, but like Lamar working out his deal with the Ravens, right? Like, he was about to leave the Ravens altogether because he couldn't get a deal out of them, or he was going to sign a 10-year contract for $1 billion with his mom. And they were like right at that edge where both things were possible. And then you got a deal. And Lamar's staying purple. And his mom got commission. Is that how that worked? Did she get, she's the agent now? Officially?
I guess so. Because, all the money stays in the family. So,
yeah. He just broke the NFL by doing that, by the way. But anyway, so I'm not trying to reduce an international conflict where there's 50,000 people dead to an NFL quarterback negotiation. But the basic thing to sort of think about here is that the ceasefire is very, very likely, and also a massive ground invasion that kills many, many more people is just as likely. And it could really turn on who didn't get lunch that day. I mean, it's really not stable, to say the least. But good on Joey B for standing up to I guess the BB. I don't know.
I mean, I think honestly, I think it's getting to the point where, I mean, recently the latest yesterday, let's put it that way, I saw a protest at the congressional soccer game, and mind you, keep in mind, folks, when you go to an event that's not fully televised, you're not going to get your message fully across. But I understand the fact that, the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian protests, I feel like you really got to keep pushing this, because this is about humanity. This is not about, right and wrong and all that stuff. It's like, there's a guy who's leading his troops to eradicate. And I think Joey B's gotten to the point where it's like, no, this is way too much.
It's way too much.
And you don't need all of this. So no. And I think and I'm kind of glad he's acting like, the papa in this whole situation, to where it says like, no, you don't need this. And I think even though you'll have these pro-Israelis saying it's like, oh, we need this, we got to do this now. No, this is genocide stuff. We ain't having that. And I don't think Joe, when he signed on to give more aid to this situation, let's put it that way, I think he wasn't in full agreement of all this. No, right from the jump.
And it's not right to infantilize like another nation state about what they're going to do. I mean, really, it's up to them. What the Israelis, what Netanyahu wants to do is up to Netanyahu. But the paternalistic aspect, if you want to call it that, is like, think of it this way: your kid does not need the new GI Joe, but it doesn't mean you're not going to like buy him a winter coat. You're still going to do the thing to protect him. He's going to be okay. Just not going to get to commit the awful genocide. So to the Republicans who conveniently all of a sudden really care about protecting Israel, and by extension Jewish people who did not care about it when there were actual Nazis chanting about killing all of my people, those guys are out there saying, oh, Joe Biden sold out Israel. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. The Iron Dome is still working. The intelligence is still there. They're still flying F-35s and F-16s. All of that is still going on. They just don't get to have the giant, daisy cutter bombs that kill hundreds of people at a go. They don't need that. If, for whatever reason, Iran did some shit that Israel needed to go after them with 2,000-pound bombs, don't think for a split second that they wouldn't get those for that. But they want to use them for something else, which is pounding civilians in Rafah. To be fair, let's not make this a totally one-sided thing. The reason that they want to go into Rafah is because Hamas is hiding in the tunnels in Rafah. That's where their leadership is. That's where they've got operations that are actively smuggling stuff in across, from Egypt and wherever else. It's not like this is completely without reason. That is where the bad guys are. And they are buried deep underground. And 2,000-pound bombs would help blow them up. The problem is that they're underneath a school. So they're not stupid. they're hiding in places where if you go after them, you're going to have to, take a hit in terms of world opinion.
Yes. Hey, let's go back a month ago. Hey, when they blew up the hospital.
Several months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing that Hamas always has done this, right? And the trick is for the Israelis to go after them early when the world will tolerate. This is awful to say it this way, but when the world will tolerate bombing a few schools to get a few bad guys, it's when you've been doing it for 7 months and the number of people dead is approaching 40,000 confirmed, and it's way more than that under the rubble. You're just running out of world patience. And finally, run out of U.S. patience. I never thought I'd see this happen in my entire life. This is quite a paradigm shift. This is exactly what we talked about last week, and we said that this might be coming. Again, we predicted the future. I haven't seen my medal yet, but there you go. That's my little bit. All right, there you go. Sad stuff out of the way. You want to take a break?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to James about things that are less sad and much more interesting. Maybe. I don't know. Could be more interesting. Sad stuff's interesting.
For some.
It bums you out.
Yes.
But it's interesting. And then a little later, coming up, the stormy mushroom penis. That's an actual quote. I don't have a choice. I have to read it. Yes. Really transcript from court. Sorry. All right. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Street balls.
Mother wolves, father risers. Mother wolves, father risers. Borrowed from the hook, taken lightly, slipping while they took. How did right there? Oh oh, oh oh, oh oh, oh oh. Guns I'll dig down on your wilted pillow, stuck, raving mad to be stuffed. Weathered fish borrowed to drown along the omen, swallowed down. Father rises, mother pulls. Father rises, oh oh, oh oh. I am stoned.
to ChipChat here on Bellway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Brian. Who is that, Brian?
That was War Twins.
Oh, good band.
From California. And
Yeah.
The song was called Mother Pulls.
Yeah, so they're pretty good. And I wonder if we could, I don't know, talk to them. Feel like a possibility.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay. Well, we'll try. You got the link I sent you with all the other ones?
If it's the same album, yeah.
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 On
we can
Bandcamp
look
there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as it happens, a million years ago, I met James. Actually, the notes here say it was 100 years ago, so I'm selling myself short. It was 100 years ago when he was part of an amazing punk rock band called, at the time, Little War Twins. Now it's just War Twins.
They grew up, huh?
Yeah, they grew up, which consisted of James and his now wife, which has also been a very long time. But time would roll on, and eventually punk rock made way for the natural progression, audiobooks. You know, as most rock stars do, got into audiobooks. Now James runs one of the nation's premier audiobook recording operations. James, welcome to ChipChat.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, before we get to all of the bits about audiobooks,
Yes,
when are we getting a new album?
this year.
Oh, really? I just guessed it. That was pretty good. All right.
No, I don't know. Actually, that's something actually Gaetana and I have been talking about just this week. So, yeah, I feel like we were talking about this a little bit before. Like, I feel like the entire music community, live or not, is in a weird state in the last couple of years. It just has shaken everybody up. But yeah, I think it would be something fun to do. It just would be fun to do.
Do you think you would still be the same kind of angsty punk rock kind of album, or would it be more like, hey, we're parents now?
Definitely. I think we were gonna wait until we're grandparents and then just lean into like we're just gonna revert into like a 50s, 60s, 40s, 30s thing. Yeah, no. Actually, the thing is, each time we put out music, we kind of got a little bit more honed into. Now, Gaetano is the primary songwriter in that, and we just kind of like got further, closer and closer to that stuff. And the last record we did was with Sylvia Massey, who did my lots of favorite albums: Tool, Johnny Cash, Tom Petty, all that stuff. And we were starting to feel like we were getting close there. But now, of course, we can really do what we want. And isn't that the goal of everybody, that now they figured it out?
Well, and now you've got all the capability to sort of record and engineer and produce it all yourself, I guess.
Indeed. Which that's like off our first mixtape of things. But yes, come a long way since those days. And yeah, I mean, Gaetana's songwriting is just so great. And that stuff was like pretty out there, progressive soul punk oddity, pure expression. But yeah, I'm psyched to do something with that.
I will be really excited to listen to it, and especially if you came on the road, come back here to DC.
I don't know about that. We'll see. But if we, maybe that's the one place we'll go. We'll go back to the Black Cat at DC, our favorite spot.
You got to come to Black Cat. If you're a rock band and you come to DC, there's basically like two places you got to play: is 930 Club or Black Cat. And 930 Club just opened the like mini version, the old school version, like sort of mimicking the old 930 F Street where they started. Where when we were younger, Brian was already an old man by then, but where it all started. So that's cool. And also Black Cat is like the place. It's also Dave Grohl's club, so that's cool. You should try to play.
wrong about
It's
that.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So tell us about the elephant audiobooks. I did not know elephants could produce audiobooks.
It's hard to record with them in the room. I think that's the first thing everybody has to get over.
Yeah.
But they can hear the best. So so what happened was, and it's actually fun War Twins trivia, is that Gaetan and I recorded our first Little War Twins single with our friend Kenny P, who in that studio that is now Elephant Audiobooks, he had a music studio called Elephant Music Group. And so he got started off, he was like a Berkeley guy, and he did some cool records in there. And so we did our first song with him. And then about a year or two later, he switched over to doing audiobooks, and he started the company. So that was probably like a dozen years ago or something now. And then my mother is a fantastic, incredible singer and actress. And after, tiring as some do from the, music late night schlag, she found that, I can put my vocal talents and acting ability towards audiobooks. And I really like that. And it was a great decision. And so I wound up getting started in this because I knew how to use the same music software, like editing software that you use for audiobooks. And so I started helping out with her first books. And then it was a coincidence that she knew Kenny from the audiobook community, and I got hooked up with him. And it was like a thing we did on the road, because as you know, War Twins, we built a bed in the back of our van.
Yeah, you were a real punk rock traveling operation.
Yeah, we were living out of Walmart parking lots for like 3 years. We just were constantly perma-touring for like 9 or 6 month stretches, and then find a place to crash for 3 months and then start it over again. And when we would drive to a new city and state, the middle of the day, we get to a Starbucks, and I'd be booking out our tours, that the tour date's like 2 or 3 months down the line, and then editing audiobooks to make extra cash because, we got stiffed all the time.
Nobody gets into punk rock to make money. That's for darn sure.
Oh yeah, no, there was a tremendous amount of just like heart and passion driving that for sure. So yeah, and then it just kind of became a thing of freelancing for my friend Kenny. And then we moved to LA. That was another thing I just did for work. We started taking on some more. And then last year, I was out at a recording session in Phoenix, and I got a call from him, and he was like, "Hey, I got this." I hadn't heard from him in a while. He's like, "I got this project if you'd like to help me out with." And I was like, "Yeah, that would be great, man." I got off the phone, and then I got a call back from him 5 minutes later. And he's like, "Hey, you know what? I haven't really told you, but I'm doing a whole career shift. I'm getting into mental health. I'm helping families and teens with mental health counseling and everything like that. And I was going to shut doors on this business. Would you want it?" And I was like, "Wow," And
I guess so.
I guess so. So made an arrangement, and I bought the company, and he, still is on deck to help me out with some, just sharing his experience. But I've been doing it for like 10 years now. And now we've been I thought it was going to be a lot more modestly paced when I first took over. And it basically has been completely booked out since September, since August when I got in. And I just opened up a Los Angeles affiliate called LA Audiobooks, and that's starting its first projects this week. And it's yeah, it's been a wild, amazing thing, man.
It's crazy because people think of audiobooks and the pacing of the way they sound is calm and slow and soothing and nice to listen to in traffic. And then, but the pace of actually booking, producing, creating all of that stuff is breakneck. To put I don't know exactly. We don't have breakneck traffic here in Washington. We only have stop traffic in Washington. So, one of the things that I read about with Elephant is that you sort of specialize in helping authors record their own narration. Because, a lot of people want the author to read their book. But what if the author is terrible? How do you deal with it? Because just because you can write doesn't mean you can talk in a microphone.
You know what? First of all, you're right in the sense that there's definitely a gap in people who are really confident and know how to engage people. Public speaking, right, is a huge fear for most people, it turns out. And even if it's just you in a room, there's a difference between acting something out, like if you have a fiction book and you have characters doing a story, or orating a piece of nonfiction, but make it feel interesting and that you're not being lectured to in your car by some really dry thing. But on the other hand, it's such a core human thing that with a little bit of direction, which is part of what I do and part of what our producer, in any of our studios, is like, that's part of that job of listening and figuring out how to just, in as brief as possible, direct them to get to where they are. And the thing is, one of the easiest things to do to be engaging and really shine your light and people are attracted to you is when you're passionate about something. And authors who spent months and months or years and years of their life pouring every bit of their heart and soul into 90,000 words, they're passionate about it,
Sure. You'd
So
hope anyway.
it doesn't take that much to get them to the authentic thing that sounds great to hear. And you know what? If they really just, if for some reason they're really uncomfortable with their voice and they just don't feel like it, they usually are say that up front. They're like, can you hire a we're not interested in this at all. Can you hire somebody to help us out? And so then we have a database of hundreds and hundreds of different voice actors we can call on and do auditions and get something like that. And so they can hear and say, oh, this resonates with me. And then we'll hire those people.
So, you mentioned the thing about public speaking. You're somebody who has been on stage in some fashion or another for a really long time. I don't know that what we do here is exactly public because, we're safely in our own studio sort of talking to each other. But I also am somebody who just loves the spotlight and wants to be on stage. I often find it hard to remember that other people don't want that. Do you ever run across that where somebody's like, I'm a little shy about getting in front, and you're like, that sounds crazy. Why wouldn't you want an audience?
Yeah, I don't consort with those types. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, it's kind of funny when you're doing so much music or stuff like this. You kind of are in this weird Venn diagram of people who are interested in being in that position in some way or another. But in doing this, I have found, some people who are just inherently shy, and there's nothing wrong with it,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just hard for me to remember when people are like, I'm a little nervous about going up and telling everybody whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Not everybody always wants to be on stage all the time. It's not going to be a shock to Brian or anybody who knows me that I always want to be on stage. I always want the microphone. I always want the spotlight. Apparently that is not normal. I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, for sure, everybody uh, here today is not normal, but we're okay with that.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't want to. Don't call me that normal. All right, so here we're going to get to the hard stuff. The question that we hear the most regarding audiobooks is listening to an audiobook the same as reading it? And I'll take this a step further because, like Tez, our usual co-host here,
Right?
He's a reader. He
Mhm.
loves to read. He's very snooty about that too, and he's always carrying around a book and talking about how he reads all the time and blah blah blah. I obviously can read. I just choose not to. I don't even listen to the audiobooks. I listen to the author go on Fresh Air and talk about their book, and then I consider that I have read the book. So define for us, is listening to an audiobook the same as having read the actual book? And if not, why?
Okay, so no.
Okay, great.
No, but to expound further, what I think that question actually means, the question is inferring some superiority of reading over listening.
Over listening, yes.
Am I right? So in that case, yeah, I don't think so. And I love reading as well. And there's some obvious things to throw out, right? It's accessibility to the nth degree, right? It's just completely exploded. I'm sure that's not in debate here, but
No. And you can listen to it while you're driving, for example. You're not supposed to
right.
read while you drive.
But like, I was thinking about this because I know you had brought it up, and like, what is the advantage of reading the book? And a lot of times the question is brought up, did you read the book or did you watch the movie? Or vice versa, right? And the idea being, oh, you got to read the book, and that's because the book, goes into much more detail. It's longer, and it doesn't have to be compressed and all that stuff. And you get to, most importantly, imagine it yourself.
Yes.
Your brain activates, and you get to cast it yourself and hear it in those voices, and it finds its way in your synapses and creates relationships and connections that are just so much more personal to you than watching that's something that's already been fully painted out for you, right? And potentially more passive. But it's the same process, really, when you're listening. And in fact, I would argue basically either way, you're losing one dimension of something, right? You have, try not to get too out there with this, but
It's fine. You're not going to run into any rules or anything like that here. Go for it.
Right. So when I'm reading a book, there's a good chance that I'm going to miss some things in translation because the way I'm reading them, at the pace I'm reading them, I might miss something. But, and let's say, especially in the author's case, who really knows this thing inside and out, and they can speak and act out these sentences that the tone of the voice actually conveys so much more information. There's so much, the melody of it and the emotion of it. Like, yeah, you can infer those things, but there are other things that are in there in the human voice, and storytelling is like our oldest form of communication, and it just resonates into that deep psyche.
So last week we had our guest is a guy who coaches TED speakers on how to present their talk, and we talked a lot about how storytelling is the essence of humanity. It's that how we communicate things. It's what gave us a leg up on our ancestors who didn't tell stories, and gives us big advantage in preparing to protect yourself against the saber-toothed tigers is our favorite common enemy. But
Yeah.
I am somebody who mostly absorbs the world through sound. I listen to public radio all day long, and I'm picking up information without the visual. So I, just as if I was reading, I'm having to paint the picture in my mind from the words, you know, and I'm synthesizing it. I read the paper a lot, and when you're reading the paper, you know, or even the digital version of the paper, like there's pictures, but when you're listening to the radio, there's no pictures.
Right.
But what there is sometimes is Nina Totenberg doing the voices of all the different justices on the Supreme Court, and that is very, very compelling because she gives them all their intonation and their, you can hear their emotion and stuff. It's all things that you don't get from listening from reading transcripts and stuff like that. So I would argue, and I know I'm not a scholar on this, and I have no position to say this because I don't read books. But I would
argue a great case for not reading books, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm a pretty smart guy with a lot of information. I don't read anything. No, that's not true. I read a lot of things, but I don't read books. I read articles.
Sure.
But I would make the case that listening is maybe a little more profound than simply reading it, because you do get that tone if it's coming from the person, especially like you said, the author, because you are going to hear it in your ears and in your mind the actual way that they meant it to come across. Whereas if you read it, you might not pick up on where there's a comma and totally get it wrong. Is that fair? You that and tell everybody I'm the expert.
Absolutely expert. In fact, you're taking over the business.
There you go. See, click it.
So I think that either way you gain and lose one thing. So, you know, I'm as an artist and creative person, I love what happens when you limit something, because it forces your imagination to ignite and fill in the gaps over here. Yeah. And so I love that some of those elements are lost, like some of those dimensions are lost when you're reading. And, you know, I like that, you know, there's other things about listening, but, you know, I think they're equal, and each have their, you know, pros and cons or whatever. But I mean, it's pretty much all pros either way. If you're reading or if you're listening, it's a win. And, you know, there's a lot of the stuff we do is, I mean, we do recordings for people who, you know, we record professional narrators doing stuff that other authors have written. Oh man, you catch me. Also, by the way, I have a toddler. It's late. My brain. But anyway, but yeah, one of the things about specializing and really like getting to work with a lot of authors is channeling into their passions and getting it across and building relationships with their communities. And it's there's nothing else like it, you know.
So I would echo you. It's all prose unless it's poetry.
Oh,
that was terrible, but I had it teed up. Okay, so the next question, of course, which is not going to shock anybody, is can I and Tez, when he shows up again, can we be added to the list of narrators? We do have an awful lot of experience. Tez, of course, reads a lot. I, of course, talk a lot. And
I don't know about Tez. I think you're in. We're gonna have to see about Tez. It sounds like he came in pretty loaded against. He's gonna have to talk his way into. I
think he's gonna make the case that he likes both, because he is also very much a public radio kind of guy.
I was gonna say you guys did kind of pick an auditory medium here.
Yeah. Look, I've been doing fake radio now for almost a decade. It's just kind of how this goes. And the fact that we're on video, you know, having this conversation, that there are people watching us live have a conversation, feels weird to me. I don't even really want there to be the visual aspect of this, but we've had a visual part of this show for longer than we haven't, because that's how the internet works and people watch radio, which feels weird. I don't want to watch radio. I want to hear radio, but now because we have
anyone watching, you are free to close your eyes at any point. But I will say you will be missing. Like you have a fantastic animation to you, and I think.
Thank you. Yeah. The other thing is that now that we have Brian, we have graphics. So when we do have the visual aspect of everything, and Brian throws us these wild graphics, which we never have seen before the show, it really has their own character, which is really great. So so if I want to be on the list now. I can of course record things here in the studio or at home. We can do, do I have to come hang out with the elephants, or is it a thing that I can do remotely?
Obviously, it would please me greatly to get to hang out with you anytime. But we do a lot of stuff. People send in remote stuff, and I'll do post-production just like that. I mean, any way you can kind of slice it, we do it. So full production from top to bottom, or we work with a lot of big companies like Recorded Books and Spotify, and do Macmillan, whatever. They'll hire us to be a local studio in Boston or LA, and whichever way it comes at us. And actually I've been starting to do music compositions for the audiobooks too. So that's been really
that's cool. Like scoring and everything.
Yeah, there's this awesome author, Andre Debus III, who did The House of Sand and Fog, which is also an awesome movie. But I just got to record his new book, Ghost Dogs, and also did the music for the intro and outro, and that was really cool.
That sounds like it's weird. Like here we are, basically 100 years since the advent of primetime commercial radio, and we are inching our way back to radio dramas.
Yeah.
Here in Washington, we have the big broadcast, which comes on every Sunday night at 7:00, where we get to listen to old school radio shows. There's always an episode of Dragnet. There's always an episode of Gunsmoke. There's always an episode of Johnny Dollar. And I love listening to that stuff because you got all the sound effects and all that, but you've also got people are really voicing up and they're narrating. Mr. Dillon, I don't know about, it's very descriptive and sound. It paints this whole world. And I've never not had that, right? Because we've always had the big broadcast, but it seems like maybe the mainstream is kind of inching back to. Do we all really just wish we had Dragnet again? Is that what we're after?
Yeah, obviously. And it's cool. I have a vinyl record. It's like a best of those radio shows where it's like just totally different things like that. And
I had the whole first season of Superman on the radio on cassette tapes that I used to listen to on the train from New Haven back to Washington.
Yeah,
that entire
the original podcast
sense to anybody listening right now, but we used to have cassette tapes and trains. All right. So, I guess the last question I have for you is, have you ever got a call for like Australian narration of something?
Right? To call you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Call me like right away. Wow. I'm not even in Australia, but I've got the Forsters. So
I got to be honest with you. Most people's Australian accents just weave in and out of all different English things and back and forth.
No, they haven't got it. I was born in Canberra.
Oh, wow.
So like my regular, no, I wasn't. But my kids aren't sure whether I was born in DC or Canberra. So like I'll tell them like different versions of my origin story, and then it keeps them very confused. I highly recommend you doing that with your children.
I highly recommend you create 2 different versions of your website and have full biographies of either. And just, I don't know, just randomly send out one or the other.
You hear that, Brian? We have to get a website. I
2
hear
different radio shows.
One of those geo sites.
Yeah.
Okay. So James, the last question before we play Florida or not is how can everybody get in touch and follow? Let's say we've got several authors, several big time authors have been on our show and then gotten super famous. So they might want to record their audiobooks and they would want to get in contact with the Elephants.
Yeah, totally. And super famous or your first time, do people doing memoirs, all that kind of stuff is, everybody's welcome. It's www. Which I love that I have to not actually say, elephantaudiobooks.com or laaudiobooks.com. You'll find your way to me. And, if you're in DC, we contract out with other studios. If you're local there, you don't have to come up to Boston or go out to LA, but we love partnering up with other studios. We do it all the time, all over the country. And just hit us up and tell us about your story and your project.
All right, so we'll post links to that when we send out clips of the show, and so everybody can follow you and go record their audiobooks. Hey, maybe we'll become one of those satellite studios. Brian, you want to come do more stuff here?
Sure.
There you go.
The enthusiasm.
Radio is we're a part of the network now.
Great.
Okay, so we're gonna make you play this game, which is called Florida or Nah. We have a sound effect for it.
Or not.
There you go. Oh. The way this works is we're going to read you a news story with the locational details removed, and you have to tell us whether this happened in Florida or not in Florida.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty easy. Not always that easy.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. See, a lot of people get super confident. It's not like the story isn't meth alligator wins mayoral race in Jacksonville. That would be too obvious.
Not that I can't trust your answer here, but are they not all in Florida?
No.
Oh, okay. It's a fair shot. Okay.
Unless the one time that I forgot to read
Switch the
strike
cards.
throughs on the script and just outright told our guest, but
Twice.
She got it right.
Nice.
It was in Denver. Okay.
All right.
Are you ready, James?
I've never been more ready.
Okay. Airport security officers found a slithering surprise last week, a bag of snakes hidden in a passenger's pants. According to a Twitter post by the TSA, officers at the international airport found the small bag of snakes hidden in a passenger's trousers on April 26th at a checkpoint. The post included a photo of two small snakes that were found in what appeared to be a sunglasses bag. TSA said the snakes were turned over to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Did this happen in Florida or not in Florida?
It's tough because the camo sunglasses bag feels like it tilts it, but I'm going to say nah.
Going with nah. Incorrect. It's in Miami. It was. You should have gone with your instincts, but I like that you showed your work because that's we always ask people to show their work. So that's good. This one was in Miami. I don't know what kind of snake that was. I don't know, Brian. Can you put it back up on the screen for us to see if we can identify it?
Let's be honest. It just looks like too small a snake to come from Florida.
Yeah, but they're kind of cute. I mean,
other than that ruby-ish / revealed brain matter on the top.
I think it's just a marking. I don't think it's.
Oh, okay.
I'm not.
Could be a raisin just stuck to its head.
It could be, raisin snake. That's definitely the kind of snake. I was mowing the lawn today, like I mentioned earlier, and I moved something out of the way, and underneath was a adorable little garter snake, and that happens to me when I'm mowing a lot. I find snakes or frogs, but usually snakes, and so I was very careful, and I kind of nudged him a little bit so he would go on his merry way. I got some pictures of him, but if I wasn't time crunched, I would have picked him up and cuddled him and brought him inside and showed the kids, and they would have been really excited. My wife would have screamed and yelled at me, but
and brought him to the airport. Yeah,
and then I would have put him on an airplane and sent him to Florida.
Yeah,
Dressed as Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
Yeah.
That guy really wanted his motherfucking snake on his motherfucking plane. The
Yeah,
TSA stopped
he
him.
only did that movie because it was named that. They tried to change the name, and he's like, "No,
Yeah.
that's why I'm doing it."
Right. It's a great name and it's a great premise. You don't even have to know what the plot is. You know what the plot is. There's snakes on a plane.
Yeah.
That's the plot. What else happens?
Next,
Dude, snakes on a plane. You get it, right? All right. As you mentioned, it is a school night, and you got to take care of various children. So before we
only one. Thank
just
goodness.
one yet.
One's enough.
Calm down. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I wish I had stopped. No, I'm kidding. I like my other two. So, but before we let you go, tell everybody one more time the website where everybody can follow you if they want to follow you on Twitter and all that kind of good stuff.
ElephantAudiobooks.com. And it's on Instagram and Facebook. I vehemently don't believe in Twitter, which I know must be shocking because I feel like you must like Twitter.
We loved Twitter.
Yeah.
Back when it was Twitter.
Right.
And it was helping to overthrow the Iranian theocracy.
Yeah.
It turned out that didn't quite work out, but we tried.
There are some perks to it, but
yeah, that was back in 2009.
Oh my goodness.
Ryan was 63 years old in 2009. Yeah, it's been a while. All right, so go to elephantaudiobooks.com. You can get all the information there. If you're an author, you can go get your book in the queue. It's booked way in advance. So don't think you're showing up next week to go record your stuff, right? You're going to have to wait until 2026 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's always better to just hit us up and talk, and we'll see what you want to do and
see when we can fit in. And if you really want a overly excited, loud fake Australian,
I don't need to call anyone else. Check.
Yeah,
I got you.
We got it. We're ready to go. All right, James. I think we're gonna go out with one more of your songs. So we're gonna put that on for our break, and we will come back with the third half of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I will send you a message a little bit later with links and all kinds of good stuff. And we really appreciate it. All right. Thanks to James. You are listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond. Sweeps.
Little star seeker, living on the mount, wide open peepers, pathfinder cloud. Hey, little thing, don't get lost. Plant your feet. Mind your louses. Foreshadow creature, living for the crowd, stargazing teacher, brushing off the doubt. Hey, little thing, don't get holding hands forever. With a dish and the spoon, playing.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap. Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Gay. Frogs. Won't you fight for your life? Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. I don't like the frogs. Gay. Friggin' frogs. Frogs. Friggin' frog crap. Won't you fight the frogs? It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Frogs. Place point.
Frogs! Welcome back to Chip Chat here on Bellway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me tonight is Brian.
Come Benoit.
And that was our favorite Alex Jones song about the gay frogs.
Oh, I'm gonna let you know. Since Tez wasn't here,
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to find new music
Featuring Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Next week
We've got a premiere.
Oh, you're gonna love this. This is a trio. This
Oh
is a
my
hot
God.
new trio.
I am so excited.
Yes,
So everybody
featuring
tune
Alex
in
Jones.
next week for the
Yes.
next installment of Tez watches Alex Jones songs. Speaking of which, last week my family and I went down to the Natural History Museum because it was rainy and sort of yucky out. And what are you going to do? You got kids, you live in DC. What are you going to do? Right? So you go to Natural History, you can show them dinosaurs. We get there, they're like, it's Amphibian Week. You should check out all this stuff about amphibians. We're like, sounds great. We love amphibians. So we went and learned all about the amphibians. All of the different federal agencies that deal with amphibians, of which there's apparently dozens, we're all there, right? The Forest Service, Park Service, you had the U.S. Geological Survey. It's really interested in frogs for whatever reason. The Defense Department is very interested in frogs. I think they use them to figure out how toxic the bases are or something like that. Anyway, the various frog presenters were like, oh yeah, it's Amphibian Week everywhere. Tomorrow, we're going to be at the zoo. And my children retained that information. So the next morning, they were like, we need to go to the zoo to go see the same people talk about frogs. They're like, all right, well, we're Fonz members, right? We're supporters of the zoo. I was raised at the zoo. It's not shocking to anybody. So let's go to the zoo. So we go, all the way up Woodley Park and go to the zoo. And we get there. It is also Family Diversity Day, celebrating families who are, not necessarily the Fox News version of families, but might be same sex, whatever, different things.
I get you. Yeah.
The rainbows were there. And we were like, yeah, all right, well, we're allies, we're down. So they had this whole big tent set up with like all these different things. I got like a temporary tattoo and like there were drag queens and doing all this music, and it was great. And the kids had a really good time. They're like, yeah, in the middle of the zoo, there was a party and it was so fun. And then we went right from that to the frogs. And I couldn't help but think about, they're turning the freaking frogs gay. It was Frog Day and Gay Day at the zoo. I even got a button that said I had a gay day at the zoo. And had crocodiles on it, and then one with a frog. But I wanted, This frog's come in a lot of color. Anyway, won't you fight for our lives? Speaking of fighting for their life, that guy who used to be president, 45, he's having a tough week.
So he says.
Yeah, so he's, of course he's mad that he's stuck in the courthouse and it's cold and he doesn't like it and he can't sleep
stay
in
awake.
there. Can't stay awake. Well, he stayed awake this week because the prosecution called one Miss Stephanie Cliffords, otherwise known as Stormy Daniels. Now, Brian, you're an expert in the pornographic arts.
So I'm told.
So you're special on Beltway Radio and Beyond would portend.
Yeah.
But anyway, so tell us who is Stormy Daniels?
Stormy Daniels is pretty much during, I would say, the late 90s going into the 2000s. She was pretty much the premier notable adult entertainer star. She's won Adult Video News Awards, better known as AVNs, and pretty much she was like next to certain other individual ladies at the time. She was the well-known woman to go, be featured in certain things.
She's a big deal.
She is a big deal.
She was a big deal then, anyway.
Yeah.
So
and I would say still now, but
definitely now.
Yeah, now. Well, Trump feels, I guess so.
So Stormy Daniels was called to testify by the prosecution, and the case centers around what happened. Trump and Stormy had I don't know what to call it.
Well, based off of Stormy, what she said,
a brief encounter.
Brief encounter.
Yes,
that she would love to forget.
She emphasized that the activity was brief, but they met at a golf tournament in 2006, and then eventually they had activities, and then
just once.
Yeah, and then later on, when Trump was running for president, he got worried that she would go and tell everybody about this. And so he basically paid her to keep her mouth shut. And he did that with money that he misclassified as legal expenses. And so he committed fraud in doing this. And he did it in commission of trying to help his campaign with an illegal donation. And so it amounts to a misdemeanor in commission of a felony. Therefore, he's got felony charges, 30 some odd counts of them in the state of New York. That's the background. That's not what we want to talk about. What we want to talk about is that Stormy got on the stand and the prosecution was told, keep it limited, right? Just the facts, ma'am, as we like to talk about Dragnet. So it was, it could have been, did you have sex with Donald Trump? And she could have been like, yes. And it could have been like, what was the circumstances of that? And she could have said, we met at a golf tournament, and then his bodyguard sort of arranged it. And then we did some things. And then, then he kept calling me every week after that, which is basically what happened. But no, that's not what she did. She went into lurid detail. She said that, they met while playing golf, and then he invited her. He didn't invite her. He had his bodyguard, Keith Schiller, invite her up to the hotel room. She gets up to the hotel room. He answers the door in his silk PJs. And she was clear to make a point of saying, did you steal those from Hef? What do you think you're doing? Which shamed him enough that he went and changed. And then they had dinner. Then she got up to go pee. When she came out of the bathroom, he was laying on the bed in his t-shirt and boxer shorts. Now, I would caution anybody from trying to envision that. Please don't do that. If you've already done it, I'm sorry, it's too late. You can blame James for my brilliant narration and causing that image to pop into your mind. But she was like, what is this? And then he blocked her way out of the door with his bodyguard, just outside the room. And she said her head was spinning. She didn't really know what was going on. She kind of like fainted a little bit. Next thing you know, he's on top of her. And she emphasized it was brief. Then he was like, yeah, we were really great together. We should do this again sometime. He was married that whole time, by the way. And Melania was pregnant, I think.
Yeah. And I remember she asked about where's your wife and all that stuff. Oh, we don't
sleep in separate beds
and all that stuff. And I'm like, all right.
He also told her that he could get her on The Apprentice, and she's like, I don't think I'm going to be any good at that. And he's like, don't worry, I can rig the show for you. Like, the guy who complains about everything getting rigged against him was like, yeah, I can rig it. Well, that's why he thinks everything's rigged, because he's doing it all the time. The other, like, I want to say this is funny, but it's not funny. At one point, he told her that she reminded him of his daughter because she was blonde and pretty. And then he had sex with her. And I don't know I know exactly what that means, but like, it's great to see that happened in court. And he had to sit there and listen to it the whole time. Mm-hmm. The whole time. And he was like scribbling notes and like handing them to his lawyers and stuff. So they had a cross-examination that sort of started late Tuesday and then it wrapped up today. The cross-examination was very weird. Trump's lawyer, the only female lawyer he has on this case, Nichols, I think is how you say her, Necklace. I don't know how to say this name. Like grilled Stormy about like, were you trying to like just make money off of this? And she's like, no. And she said, well, why did you take the money? And why did you? And she's like, because these people kept showing up and threatening me if I didn't do it. And you know, my lawyer got all these calls from Michael Cohen saying that he was going to, you know, ruin his life and kill me if I didn't sign up and sign the thing and whatever. So like the cross-examination goes on for 2 hours. Stormy holds her ground and she's like, no, this is, you know, whatever. And then the prosecution gets back up for a redirect and they have like very few questions and they go, on the whole, would you say this is a net positive or negative for you financially? She goes, negative by a lot. I had to hire a bunch of extra security. I got all these people after me all the time. I've had to pay all these legal bills. You know, my lawyer's in prison right now. Like, it's a whole thing. She didn't make any money at this. Did she get more famous? Yeah, a little bit. But, like, I don't think for the thing that she wanted to get famous for.
I mean, when she's been here for the Exotica tour, she's been I believe, yeah, she was here for the first one. So the last three that they've had here, she's been in every one. And mind you, we've been unable to have a proper interview based off of certain reasons. But you can tell by her body language, it's like she wanted this to be over.
Yeah,
and
she was pretty explicit about that this week on the stand. She was like, I never wanted any of this.
Yes, but the thing is, I believe it's not the sense of you know, just the trial or everything, just to have that association with him. And she knows full well that association will be for here to eternity. But the thing is,
but she never wanted that.
Yeah, she never wanted that. And I think that if it never came up, if let's say this, a smart politician would either, you know, not the hush money stuff. If he didn't do the hush money, trust and believe we would never have known about it. And it will probably be in some, you know, Stormy Daniels will probably do a parody on it for one of her movies and it'll be funny and we'll call it a laugh and call it a day. No, once you got to the point where, again, Trump gets to be Trump and starts doing stupid shit, again, acting thinking he's a mobster and say, yo, we need to shut her up. We need, you know, besides the point of trying to kill her, you threaten to kill her, but, you know, get to the point of that state. And all you're doing is, what'd you do? Leave a freaking trail. And that's what they did. And that's why he's caught.
So what we learned in court today, actually, because they were talking to like some of the bookkeepers and all of that, is that the checks that they were paying her or paying Cohen back with, which were the illegal part of this, were out of not the campaign's account, but out of his personal account. And they needed to be signed by Donald Trump. And he was already president and in Washington at the time. So there was testimony today about FedExing these things down to DC for him to sign, but they weren't sending them directly to the White House. They were sending them to Keith Schiller, to his bodyguard, to his house in DC, so that he could carry them in his pocket into Trump for him to sign it and then get them back to New York. Trump's explanation, or his lawyer's explanation for this, is the mail is slow at the White House. Everybody else is looking at this as like, you don't want it on record going through the White House. You know, you don't want all these things, people see all this stuff. This is why you're doing it clandestinely. It's open and shut. I mean, the guy paid off somebody who could damage his campaign with money that he shouldn't have been using, and then he lied about what it was. It is absolutely clear as day that he made an illegal campaign donation and that he then committed fraud to cover up the illegal campaign donation, and those are felonies. Are they kind of like technical fouls that aren't like egregious? Yeah, they are. Is this the kind of thing that a lot of politicians have gotten away with in the past? Yeah, it is. But you know what? This dummy did it with a check. He did it with a check with his goddamn signature on it. If for nothing else, Toronto Dump deserves to go to jail for being a shitty criminal, leaving a damn paper trail behind you. You moron. I'm sorry. Fucking moron. Rex Tillerson. Speaking of fucking morons, Judge Eileen Cannon. So we've talked about that she is the judge presiding over the stolen documents trial going on down in Florida. She's a federal judge. She was appointed by Trump. She had kept on the books this trial date of 20 May for the next for the trial to start. But there were several decisions that she still had to rule on that she just hadn't ruled on. And she kept asking for like help to rule on these because she doesn't really know what the rules are about any of this. This week, she suspended the trial basically indefinitely. She said that there's too much to figure out. She blamed it on the classified documents aspect of this. Okay, so to be fair, trials involving classified documents get a little tricky, right? Because in the United States, court is open. So anything that happens in court is basically published. Anybody can read it. That's why we're all getting transcripts of everything that happens in court with Trump every day, because that's the idea. It's in open court and you're swearing to it, and that's the transparency. However, when it comes to classified stuff, you might not really want that to be out in the open. So you have to come up with a bunch of rules about how we're going to refer to documents. This is document 1, document 2. You know, is the jury allowed to know what's in it? Are they not allowed to know what's in the document? Are they allowed to know the level of classification? There's a lot of rules and stuff. And fortunately, there is a law that governs that. It's called CIPA, that's Classified Information Protection Act. And she's kind of hiding behind that, but not directly. And here's what I mean by that. Along the way, you know, whenever you have a trial, you have, you know, arguments between the prosecution and defense about what's admissible, what you can talk about, what kind of witnesses you can call, all of that kind of stuff, right? And the judge rules on that. Their job is to judge what is a good idea, what's not a good idea, what's legal, what's not legal. Judge Eileen Cannon got her law degree from a Chuck E. Cheese, so she doesn't actually know what's legal and what's not. So every time there would be a question, she's like, I don't know, we're going to have a hearing about that. Let's schedule one. And she kept scheduling these things, and then they would come, Jack Smith would come and present his case, and then, you know, whatever alligator is currently representing Donald Trump in Florida that week would come and present their case, make no sense, and she would be like, oh, well, both sides make a pretty good point. I'm going to need some time to think about that. She has not actually ruled on any of these things. No, that's not true. She has ruled on some of them, And as a matter of fact, in every single one that she's ruled on, she has sided with Jack Smith and the government, which means that they were right. But she's slow at it because she's inexperienced and kind of stupid.
All right. So this is where I question this isn't a federal court, right?
It is federal court.
Okay. So that means there has to be a chief judge that either schedules this or can take over.
So yes.
So why that has not happened?
Good question. The answer to that is pretty simple, but also explains why we're in the situation that we're in right now. So the federal court that she serves on is within the 11th Circuit. So let's say there's a case, she decides it, somebody appeals it, it is appealed to the 11th Circuit. Okay. If she were to make some rulings, somebody, Jack Smith, could appeal those rulings to the 11th Circuit. And they could either overrule her and send the case back and say, these are the rules that you have to use, or in very rare instances, they can use what's called the mandamus rule, which is to say they will snatch the case away from her and either reassign it or take it on within the 11th Circuit. It's really rare for that to happen. By not actually ruling on anything, there's nothing for Smith to appeal up to the 11th Circuit. So he can't basically call her mom on this one. And it was pretty clear that he was waiting for her to rule and get it wrong on several of these things. Like when he wrote 27 pages explaining why the thing you're asking for is blatantly ridiculous and illegal. And Trump's lawyers wrote back 3 pages of quoting Lee Greenwood records or whatever. And she didn't rule on that. So because she hasn't ruled, there's nothing to appeal. And because there's nothing to appeal, you can't get the 11th Circuit to step in and take her off the case. So she's found this sort of like squishy gray area where nothing can happen. And then nothing can happen. And then she doesn't schedule it. So the whole thing is indefinitely suspended, which is exactly how Trump operates legally. He never wants cases to play out. He wants everything delay, because then he gets to make up the story all the time. So it would be exceedingly rare, perhaps completely unprecedented, for the government to appeal up to the 11th Circuit to mandamus her off the case without any rulings that they disagree with, because she has ruled in the government's favor on every one of these things.
I understand understanding that aspect, but I just feel like based off of timing, and if there's a set date, which was pretty much will be within the next 10 days or so, depending on when you hear this show.
Right.
And I feel that, based off of current performance, I just feel like, nah, I wouldn't entrust someone who I believe is fully capable of handling something of this magnitude, to preside this case. I really think it's just like you need someone of a senior level, which I don't think she is.
No, she was appointed in 2020.
So
she's never been a judge before that.
Yeah.
She had only gotten out of law school a couple of years before that.
Yeah. So I feel like this either you're throwing her into the wolves for something you feel is like, oh, this is either you felt like it was nothing, which I think is
no.
But I just think the way I see it is like I feel either the schedule of this is highly at fault, because I really think he's like, this should have been a senior level judge to handle these proceedings.
So she specifically is scheduling this in a way that will make it happen after the election.
Yeah, I mean, then mind you, you can have the conspiracy theorists figure just like, oh, she's a plant for Trump. This is all
he did appoint
blah,
her.
Blah, blah, yeah, appoint her, all this stuff. But the thing is like, no one anticipated this shit.
Right.
But
so the rules aren't set up to allow
Right.
for this. The
Right.
rules are set up that you draw the judge based on basically a random
Mm,
dice roll within the circuit in which this is happening, and he ended up with her.
yeah.
And you know, it does look like she's a Trump appointed judge.
Mm.
She's delaying this thing indefinitely. You know, she's essentially letting him off the hook or hoping, you know, that he can win the election and then, you know, nix the case entirely.
Mm.
It's fair to say that. It's all fair to say. But the rules don't say that. And the founders never anticipated a reason that you would need to have, you know, the grown-ups take over,
Mm.
you know, for the circuit court to step in ahead of the district court and say, you know, we got this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it ain't like that.
Mm.
If you think about it in terms of anything else, you know, you see on cop shows or whatever,
Mm.
you know, you got the beat cop. It's like, you know, doing the thing, whatever, and the sergeant shows up and says, I got this one. You know, like, is this a serious? We're taking it up to the captain. Like, it ain't like that.
Right.
The rules don't allow for that. So
I wouldn't say it wouldn't allow it. But
no, they don't.
I know they don't. But I just feel like
They should.
it should. Yeah, I just think it's like, understandably, this is not about, popularity or anything. This is not like the DOJ trial. And it's like, Ito didn't really want that popularity when, he figures like this was supposed to be a normal trial. It became a circus on its own. And I think for this, full well it's becoming a circus. And I think that you need a proper judge to take control before it goes way out of control. And the way I see it right now is gotten way out of control based off of the things that just transpired.
But by rule, she is a proper judge.
I understand that. I mean, based off of what we've been
the way the rules are set up, and we
and
can't
what she's
have
doing.
exceptions. And we
Right.
talk about this on the show all the time. That like to do this right, you have to follow the rules to the nth degree,
Right.
because you have to bend over backwards to give him more benefit of the doubt than you would anybody else, so that when you do convict him and throw him under the jail, it sticks.
Right.
Truth be told, I don't think it convinces any Trump supporters anyway about anything. Right? The documents case is by far the most open and shut, and now that's the one that's most indefinitely delayed.
Mm-hmm.
The January 6th, did he put them up to trying to hang Mike Pence thing? Also very open and shut, also delayed because the Supreme Court is taking their sweet ass time deciding whether presidents have immunity while they're in office. Immunity for what? Now, stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
The court has to rule, by the end of their term, which is like the end of June or July. Okay. So it's possible that the Supreme Court comes back and says presidents have absolute immunity while they're in office, and nothing they do is subject to the rule of law. It's possible they rule that, right? He's got 6 of them on there, 3 of which he appointed.
1600.
Yeah, that would
Number 2.
that would be called having a king, and we did fight 2 wars not to have to do that, right? In the revolution in 1812, but we might end up with that. There is ample time between the end of the current Supreme Court term and when that ruling is issued and the election for should they give presidents immunity to do whatever they want. A guy who said live on a debate, would you shut the fuck up, man? Might very definitely make that quick call to SEAL Team 6. Hey, I'm not joking around. In Scranton, we would have, I'm not saying he's going to do it, but if I was all of a sudden granted immunity to save democracy, I would use it. I would use it. Hopefully Joe Biden's a better man than me, but I would use it. Speaking of not a better person, you want to do stupid Republican tricks?
There's more.
Oh yeah, that was just Trump trials. This one's in Utah. You know where Utah is?
I believe that's where the Arizona Coyote is going to be moving to.
Correct. Yes. They're going to be known as the Utah Soft Rock.
I just thought
to go along with the Jazz.
Yeah, well, I'm told they're just going to be Utah for a while.
Yeah, they can't come up with the name apparently.
Yeah, they got to go through a circuit court to find out what their name is.
All right, so Utah passed a law that said that schools, other government buildings, whatever, they had to have this complaint form where people could report trans people in bathrooms. Which, again, as we've said on this show hundreds of times, all of us have peed next to trans people. The thing that you think you're worried about is called men being rapists. And they already can do that. And no amount of these rules or forms that you got to fill out are going to stop them from walking into unlocked bathrooms and doing whatever they want. And to be expressly clear, nobody is pretending to be a woman to sneak into a bathroom to lie in wait for your precious wife or daughter to walk in there so they can snatch them up and rape them. There are men doing that. They're just called men. You should ask the bear about that. Everybody in Utah that voted for this law is mad that the woman picked the bear. And if you don't know what that means, way to go, incel. Okay, so they were like, oh, Utah was like, oh no, there's going to be trans people using bathrooms. So what we need to do is make mandatory reporting if anybody sees this happen. And they're going to release this form where you can click this website and report something happening. I will give you exactly one guess of what happened.
The website crashed.
Yeah, everybody started filling this out and sending a bunch of bullshit to the to the website. Yeah, trolls overloaded the I don't know what to call it, the reporting mechanism, the form.
Yeah, I think they called it a trans form. I guess that's what they called it.
Trolls reportedly flooded the forums with fake reports, including one about a beaver in their bathroom at 3 a.m., memes, photos of bull testicles, characters from the Bee Movie, and one about Matt Gaetz harassing underage girls. Just one? You got off light. By Friday, the guy who was running this thing told the Salt Lake Tribune that his office had received 4,000 complaints in one weekend, 4,000 complaints, and they all appear to be fake. Newsflash, they were always going to be fake. We didn't see anything that looks credible, he added. I would assume that the legislature probably didn't think through what kind of public backlash might happen. I should say so. Yes, that is correct. They didn't think through that. Adding to the stupid Republican tricks, growing number of Republican lawmakers are making a renewed push to basically change how the census works. So the census is required by the Constitution to count every person in the United States every 10 years. And then that information is used to do things like draw congressional maps, figure out federal funding and apportionment, all kinds of stuff like that. Republicans, and it's exclusively Republicans, have been very interested in not counting undocumented people in the census. So they keep trying to pass laws that say we're not going to count them. Well, the Constitution says you have to count all the people. And the reason the Constitution, just to be very clear about this, the reason the Constitution includes counting all the people is because of the 3/5 compromise, and you have to count for slaves. Because if they only counted the people that they wanted to vote and have authority, the South would have had so few people in it that they would have had zero representation. But to get around that, They're like, not only should we count all the people, but even the slaves should count as 3/5 of a person. So if you get 5 of them together, it counts as 3. They're almost a people. Which let South Carolina vote. Like, if it weren't for that, the South would have no representation. That is explicitly what that is. The same people who support that are now into this idea of, well, we don't want to count the illegals. We don't want to count the people who are non-citizens. So they keep trying to have a citizenship question on the census that's been ruled by the courts to be blatantly unconstitutional. So now they want to like go district by district and sort out how many citizens are non-citizens so that they can cut federal funding to districts where there's people who are not citizens, who all still are entitled to go to school, and get all of the rest of the benefits of existing in the United States, like libraries or whatever. They don't want that. They want to make it harder for the citizens who live in places where there's non-citizens, want to cut their school funding to somehow punish the illegals. No. It is nonsensical. It's illegal. It's wrong. It's immoral. It's racist. It's stupid. And it takes away funding from your own poor fucking districts, you idiots. You rural people in Tennessee. Why don't you want the extra money? Dummies. The 14th Amendment says that you have to count the whole numbers of persons in every state, by the way. You know why we have a 14th Amendment? Because of the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Some Republicans want to exclude all non-citizens, not just unauthorized immigrants. So that's people who are here with green cards, people who are here working, paying taxes, have social security numbers. They're not citizens. They shouldn't get counted? I don't know how that's going to work. Quote, yes, the census has to count every person. The problem is the level of illegal persons. Heavy pause on illegal persons. Not sure what an illegal person is. Now, 3 kids in a trench coat trying to sneak into an R-rated movie, definitely illegal person. But they're made of 3 actual people. Let's see. That now live within the continental borders of the United States has reached such a point that it thwarts the intended service of our representative republic in the House of Representatives and the People's House, said Clay Higgins of Louisiana. Those are a lot of big words for a guy from Louisiana. He went on to say a bunch of things that nobody could understand. In case you didn't know, Republicans are racist. Want another one?
There's more.
Yeah. So remember the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, who shot her puppy and then wrote a book about it?
I'm thinking of the old In Living Color bit.
Yeah.
It's like,
shot my puppy, wrote a song about it. Want to hear it?
Here it goes.
Here we go. That's exactly what happened. So she shot her puppy, Cricket, and then she wrote a book about it. Guess what else she put in the book?
I believe she met somebody that I try to remember when did she meet him.
She claimed to have met Kim Jong-un, who is the dictator of North Korea. She went on to include extra detail about how when she met him, that he underestimated her, but she knew how to handle little tyrants because she used to teach Sunday school. Which is very, very, very funny. Or children's pastor, sorry.
Yeah, it's a children's pastor. But still, it's I mean, because I remember Trump and him. I remember that they made a big deal.
He had a love letter from him, remember? Yeah.
And I'm thinking it's like,
so she
I never know, because mind you, I know a lot of local officials have gone overseas to meet
top-notch officials, or whatever, or at least their counterparts. But it would have been another big deal if her to meet him, and I never remember.
It wouldn't have made sense. You know, why would you send the governor of South Dakota to meet Kim Jong-un? So she didn't, actually. And so when all of these reporters started asking her about this while she's out promoting her book about shooting puppies, she's like, I'm not going to talk about that. And then she called the publisher, or the publisher announced that they were going to reprint the book 2 days before it was released. So they had to pull all that hard copy back in, reprint all of it, and removed that segment because it didn't happen. So then she had to go on this whole tour of every station, including Newsmax and Fox News and all these other like right-wing, where they're like, so did you meet Kim Jong-un? And her answer was, I'm not going to talk about conversations I've had with world leaders. And they're like, but you had it in the book and then you took it out of the book. Does that mean that it's untrue? And she's like, I'm not going to talk about my conversations with world leaders, but I've met a lot of them. Okay, Sarah Palin, nobody asked you, but got it. And that's bad and stupid. But it gets badder and stupider.
It does for her? How?
Yeah.
How?
She recorded the audio book.
Hey, can we bring back James? Can he
in James's studio, where she read that whole section out loud with her own mouth into a microphone, where it was recorded and presumably sent out to lots of dozens of people to listen to. And at that point, when she recorded the audiobook, which was not days before the release of everything else, she didn't go, oh, shit, I didn't actually do that. Because, obviously, look, these politicians, most of them, they don't write the books. They have a ghostwriter, right? She obviously can't string two sentences together. She's definitely got a ghostwriter. At some point, when you read the own book that you're supposed to have written, especially out loud into a microphone where you know it's being recorded, something that's obviously untrue and provably untrue, you might want to be like, oh, how about no? But she didn't do that. She read it and recorded it and went right through it. I told you got badder and stupider.
Yeah, the thing is, though, is like, if these are your memoirs, you can, and mind you probably have, edited cliff notes or whatever about what you want to put in this book. And like you said, there is an actual ghostwriter who writes it fully. But I would like to know that little bit of that note where it states that I met this dude. And if you want to go a little bit further last week, where he said, where I shot my 14-month-old puppy.
She had in lurid detail.
Yes. I mean, to me, I felt like I need to talk to the author, the ghostwriter.
The actual author.
Yeah, the actual. I need to know was your cliff notes, your notes on writing this mess that somehow will help her and her campaign to be trying to be, Trump's, running mate.
So the guy on Newsmax was pretty blatant, like said to her face, he's like, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago who was on the top of the list to be Trump's VP, it would have been you. Now I'm not sure you should even be on that list at all. And she was like, I'm not going to talk about my conversations with world leaders. That was her answer. She's like, you look like a puppy. I'm going to, I can't wait to find out what else in here is stupidly, provably untrue. What I don't understand is why, if you're going to write the book, why fabricate the story?
I think because someone like her, and who's probably wants to be in cahoots with Trump, or probably has been, feels like, let's boast the story. Let's make it bigger than it should be.
Is it because Trump says lying is okay?
Yeah.
Because he lies all the time.
Yes. Because, mind you, what more can you do in South Dakota?
But it's not just her, right? You see like Santos and all these other people who just like tell these stories that, like, dude, somebody's just going to look.
Yeah.
And it's not 1992 anymore. They can just Google this shit.
But I think they assume that a lot of people won't do that. And it feels like, take my word. And then in the end, they can always say either, it's fake news, or in this case, it's like, I'm gonna, I don't, tell people.
It's a robotic response.
Yeah,
all right, that's conceivable for the first maybe dozen people to get caught lying about this. This happens every week. Mm-hmm. Somebody publishes a memoir with something that's stupidly untrue and verifiable mm-hmm. that people remember, and then they're stuck with this weird retraction and stuff. What compels somebody to make a dumb lie like this? Is a dumb lie. Right. She didn't have to do that.
Especially if you're trying to gain notoriety within your camp.
Look, if you're the governor of a square landlocked state, if you're trying to make a case that you should be a VP nod, one of the things that people always ask is, do you have any foreign policy experience? Because the vice president needs to have that, right? They have to be ready to step in. They're a heartbeat away, mm-hmm. but also they have to be ready to talk to a lot of world leaders, because the president can't be in two places at once.
Right.
So just like when Sarah Palin was like, oh, I can see Russia from my house, and that gives me international experience, or I read all the newspapers, all of them, many of them, whatever. Like, we get that you're trying to prove up your credentials, but if you don't have them,
just admit it.
Why do you think we're not going to find out?
Because they're stupid.
Yes. You've hit it on the head, much like cricket with the pistol in the gravel pit. Okay. We don't have a Tez talk because Tez isn't here.
Go blue.
But Brian, there was a special episode of something that aired on Beltway Radio this week.
Oh yes. For those, I'm gonna, who's been in tune with the show of late. Like I said, I am a supporter of adult entertainment. And for the last 3 years, I've been attending the adult entertainment event known as Exotica in DC. Now,
this is a fully clothed event.
Yes, fully clothed. Well, somewhat clothed.
It's a clothed event. It's don't bring your kids to this.
Yes, that's the number one. That's why I say it's adult. It's adult entertainment.
But it's not that Brian was working in front of the camera or anything, or even behind the camera as he often does. But
well, actually, I was behind the camera because I brought in DJ B Wise, who's a fan of the network. And
he's part of the family.
Yeah, so it's part of the family. Yeah. So, and we were able to once again go there, interview some adult stars. Most notably, like I said, Stormy Daniels was there, but we didn't get a chance to interview her. Other notables were Lisa Ann, who's pretty much like Stormy Daniels' cousin. But those that we did interview, Kim Swallows, Misty Stone.
What a name.
Yeah. Quincy Rowe. And those people that we interviewed, in addition to some up-and-comers, it was a very fun-filled event. And pretty much one of the questions that we asked them was about, like we've been discussing for the last few months, is where Congress has been trying to eliminate porn in some form or fashion. And most notably, they kind of said that's like, look, it's harmful to our profession. You're kind of like coming to our job, and you want to
shut us down.
Trying to shut us down.
You know, walk into Wendy's and like pull the plug on the fryer and be like, no.
Yeah. So it is, and it's kind of convenient. Like pretty much, it was Exotica goes to 4 different locations. They've been to multiple locations. Their premier event location is in Edison, New Jersey. And but they go to Chicago every year. They've been going there for now about 15 years now. They'll be heading towards Miami in June. Our friends, Rip Radio, will be there attending, so they'll probably get to see Miami. But each location is
TJ different. And the Good Trump will be there.
Yeah, so each location is very different. New Jersey, which is pretty much, you can say, the Mecca It's bigger. It's a lot
Porn's
of
not allowed in Mecca.
yeah. Well, not yet, but but anyway, they pretty much a lot of people go there. A lot of the top stars there and things of that nature. I haven't been there in a few years because convenience because I can go to DC. DC is a bit tame, a bit down because it's at the Dulles Expo. But some notable stars do show up, and you get that kind of experience. The late end of the year since it happens in December. The next one will be December 6th to 8th. So, ladies going free on Friday night, so you can bring a date. I tried to convince Doug Bennett, formerly of
Conversation with comedians,
and he had a. I say, bring your girl, bring your girl, and it's like he gave me.
He's like damn near a preacher. I don't think he's gonna go to that.
So I had to sneak in last year to help him. I got him a gift. Since he couldn't make it, but I told him I had to sacrifice to get this gift. So Alexis, Texas, thank you very much.
Oh, that's a name I've heard.
Yes. So, but anyway, the whole point of the event.
She was with Ted Cruz on that flight to Cancun.
Yeah. And, but the main thing here though is it's going to an event like this, it's freeing, it's liberating for a lot of people, and it even had its own controversy back, I would say now been 7 years ago. They had a chance. They had an event in Texas, Dallas, Texas, and it got rave reviews. It was pretty much, you can say, the prelude to going to DC because of the fact like everything was, everyone liked it. A lot of people attended and everything. So they were preparing for it going into next year. They had the permits. Everything was fine. All that stuff was great. The week of their event, pretty much they were delayed. The week of. Everything was a go, but they were delayed by the city council.
By DC?
By the Dallas City Council. Like I said,
Dallas.
This was Dallas. This is at the time when they were going to Dallas.
Dallas sucks.
Yeah. So, and they were kind of like, what the hell's going on? So, based off the reports, pretty much the city council felt that they had, everybody was running out naked. They paid a whole bunch of mess, claims that they
every man on that Dallas City Council knew half the performers by name.
Probably. So the unfortunate thing was, it's like they pretty much had to cancel that show. And even though they had a lot of attendees and vendors and all that stuff, and it's a lot of money. And pretty much they went to talk to the city council about it, and asked is like, look, we didn't do anything that you claimed that we did last year. None of that. And he made sure of it. But pretty much it was like, we're a Bible Christian state and we don't want this in our house. That's pretty much what they said. And it's like, okay, fine. So there was supposed to be another adult event also around that time frame. So they had to shut that, they closed it amongst themselves once they got the ruling about Exotica. And then from that point, Exotica was able to go to other places like Denver, Portland, and then eventually came into DC a few years, 3 years ago. And I think the timing of it was perfect because Trump was still in office, was like on the verge of being out.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about Stormy Daniels kicked in, and it's sort of like really made this resurgence. So
accelerated the whole thing.
Yeah, everything. So having Exotica here in DC, and especially now for another year, is kismet because of the fact is like this battle between sex and politics is going to keep continuing. And I think having it right at your door.
Well, in Dulles, which is in Virginia,
right,
where Glenn Youngkin,
yes,
passed or signed the no porn for anybody law. So if you're in Virginia and you want to watch pornography, you either need to use a VPN and mask that you're not in Virginia, or a cell phone.
Yes.
Which I hear many people have.
Yes. Or you can still use your Twitter account or X, that perfect appropriate name for it now. So.
Yeah, right. I'm not like up on that, but I learned that this whole thing is kind of moot, right? Because everybody's just using their phones.
Yeah. But I think now I believe The way things are going now, I know a lot of people are still afraid of people getting access, and I just recently saw last week tonight about public libraries and banning adult content in the public libraries, which is
go watch that episode.
Yeah,
it's
so ridiculous,
hilarious, but also these people are ridiculous.
And I think, and again, it's kind of like those. I kind of believe it's like there are people who are complaining about something they never seen.
Not only have they never, either they've never seen it or they are deeply involved in it.
Yeah, it's one or the other. But mostly I believe it's just
Mike Johnson loves porn.
Right.
It's 100%.
Yes. I mean, he has to observe. Him and his son has to,
his adopted black son who he hasn't actually adopted.
Yes.
And nobody's seen a picture of in several years.
Yes. So I think, like I said, this event is really good. It's fun. It's entertaining.
Was Mike Johnson at the Exotica?
I don't think so. I think he was.
You don't know.
Well,
he
will probably.
He's incredibly nondescript.
Yes, he's probably those Groucho Marx glasses or something like that.
He was definitely.
But again, I recommend going there. Get you learn some things, have some fun. It's
when is it coming back?
December 6th to the 8th, I believe, this year.
All right. So we're gonna send you as our reporter
again. Well, I'll have someone else report. I like to film it, so.
Oh, Brian's into the film.
Yes.
Yeah. Whatever works, Brian. Just get the story. That's the kind of hard-hitting journalism you expect from Chip Chat. Speaking of hard-hitting journalism, the New York Times. You know what the New York Times is reporting?
Some more scandal?
No. In 2010, RFK Jr. was experiencing memory loss and mental fogginess so severe that a friend grew concerned that he might have a brain tumor. Woof. Damn. Kennedy said he consulted with several of the country's top neurologists, many of whom who either treated or spoken to his uncle, Ted Kennedy, before his brain cancer.
The New York Post.
Several
Kennedy is a humorless bully living in a paranoid fantasy Vanity Fair.
Brain scans
What the
concluded that he had a tumor.
Kennedy?
He said in his
He's a walking, talking conspiracy theory. The New York Times. He's completely divorced from reality. The Guardian.
He is for the trip to go to Duke University.
Being with him was the low point of my summer.
He said he received a call from a
Kennedy
doctor.
speaks with a croaking, rasping, painful-sounding voice. His vague explanation is that it's a virus.
Dead parasite.
But more likely, it is a crack pipe voice.
Yes. The doctor believed that the abnormalities seen in the scans was caused by a worm that got into my brain and ate a portion of it and then died.
He has conversations with dead people. The Guardian.
RFK Jr., who is running for president, is walking around with a piece of his brain missing that was eaten by a worm that is now dead. There is a follow-up to the story. Since it broke, he assured everybody that the worm didn't eat the part of his brain that's necessary for being president. And I'm not making that up, and that's not a joke. He did say that. This is very stupid. But also, he's polling like 14%. So 14% of this country is like, I want the guy with the worm brain. The guy with the part of his brain that was eaten by worm. How toxic is RFK Jr.'s brain that the worm ate it and died? This is a brain worm. It normally eats brains and it's fine. This one ate a little bit of his brain and was like, whoa. And died. I'm at a loss.
This is what we got. This is what our representation is. Okay.
I have cognitive problems. Clearly, he said in his 2012 deposition, I have short-term memory loss and have longer-term memory loss that affects me. Don't worry though, he could still be president. The worm said it was fine.
Was that the worm from Shazam? I forgot his name.
I don't know.
Mr. Dove, I think Professor Brain or something. I forgot. But
in Futurama, they got the brain slug.
Yep.
Yeah. Same idea. All right, this one's called Told You. So remember last week we told you that there was a deal to save MAGA Mike should Moscow Marge fire off her motion to vacate. Well, she did. She fired her motion. Brian, do you know how your girlfriend voted?
I think it was 4 to get him out.
Did she? I don't know. There was 10 that voted for it.
Oh, she wasn't one of the 10? Oh, we have a new lawyer.
I don't know.
To show everything. So when there's a Margie Green issue, it's Green Rage.
There's Green Rage.
And since she's the MVP, she's the most valuable pompous. So
there you go.
So this is the most valuable pompous report.
MAGA's MVP. So Margie fired off her motion to vacate. Only 10 people voted for it. 10 Republicans. The rest of the Republican caucus, the other 203, voted no. And then most of the Democrats voted also no. And then the rest of the Democrats abstained, didn't vote. This is too stupid to engage with. Don't want to have anything to do with it. We told you all this was going to happen. We told you it was going to fail. We told you there was going to be an agreement to save Mike Johnson. Will it happen again? Definitely. Will the Democrats save him again? Don't know. Stay tuned to the show to find out, because it turns out we can predict this kind of thing. I really like that fellow Republican Mike Lawler, I think is his name, of New York, has referred to her as Moscow Marge now. In various press conferences.
She has those, that white fur. So.
Well, and she keeps voting against Ukraine aid. So, she's Putin's puppy. Don't let Christy Noem find out about that. She also called everybody the uniparty. This is not a priority. I don't know why she said this, said Ralph Norman, member of the Freedom Caucus, after the vote. After spending most of 2023 as a firebrand who changed course to work with her party's leadership, Green found herself increasingly isolated. Even Trump came out and told her in a posting on his fake Twitter, he was like, look, there's probably a time that we got to get rid of this guy, but now ain't it. But I still love you, Marge. So, still in the running for VP. Wonder how many dogs she's killed.
We'll see how much she killed. With that fur she has on.
Judging by that face.
Yeah.
Atlanta DeVille over there. Good Lord. Mm-hmm. If she hasn't killed a dog, looking at him, Oil. Good God. All right. Tez is not here, which means that we get to do this little bit about the real ChipChat Derby without him. So the O's and Nats split our the first half of our home and home, right? 2-game series.
Still don't get it, but okay.
We talked about that a little bit last week, and we talked about it a little bit offline. Hyde is an amazing manager for the Orioles. He's had to fight his way through deep pitching situations. It seems like he's got this thing figured out, or at least he's nimble enough on his feet, and he's got his guys willing to follow him and fight for him and stuff. So looks really good. I could use a little more offense, guys. Third best offense in the league. Got to hit a little better. And Georgie Mateo, hell of a game.
Yeah,
a lot of hustle.
I mean, this pretty much this week was his feature week, so to speak, because
all hustle.
Yeah, all hustle. Because I know he's been rumored to be on the trading block and stuff like that, and but since Holiday has been sent back and to reconfigure himself, so it gives a chance for him to get some work in. I mean, Mateo, I think is highly unutilized. I really think it is in addition to Mullins, I think having him on the base path, once he's on the base path, he's a speed demon.
He is.
And I think that
he's aggressive without being chancy.
You're right. So I mean, he's a smart base runner. So he just needs to, again, get some more opportunities to really do some things. The only concern I would say is Preble. I don't know what is in it, because keep in mind, folks, baseball is 90% mental, and there's something going on in his head, because when he, his first several, early saves attempts, I mean, he was fire. He was like, he was shutting him down. Now it's kind of feel like I don't know what's going on. It just seems like, something's going on in his head that makes him, makes these situations really chaotic. And normally, for a closer, they may like chaotic situations to help amp them up a little bit more. No, I did not like this.
Yeah, Kimbrel seems to get like, if he gets off his rhythm, he becomes a liability.
Yeah,
he just starts grooving into the other guy.
Right. So I think that like you said, Hyde has smartly reconfigurate certain things in certain situations, especially during this series, to help benefit, hopefully in the long run. Mind you, they were off tonight, and they'll be going out to Arizona soon. Or actually, I think they're coming here. But
no, I think we're going to Arizona.
No, they're coming here.
Oh, they are.
They're coming here. But my main concern would be
also the ump stole that game from.
That's my main concern, is the umps, and and like I said, it's not just the Orioles alone. I have seen this now. I mean, we're now 7 weeks into the season.
The whole league hates Angel Hernandez.
Yes, and
ump tracker software is like showing where these guys are biased or like
so
blowing calls that are obvious, right? Especially in the strike zone. We now can track all of this.
Yeah,
it's not subjective.
Yeah, I even saw the report card on Twitter of that guy who
every game there's report cards for the home plate umps, and there's also like it shows where they missed strike calls.
Mm-hmm.
It also tells you the consequence of various calls and the percentage of their missed calls that were consequential.
Yeah.
So like the ability to grade the performance of the umpires now is in the hands of the fans. Mm-hmm. And you can only see where that's going to go. Somebody's going to be calling for somebody to get fired soon.
True. But I mean, honestly, look, I know electronic umps are out there. I don't mind having that as a alternate, but I don't want it to be a mainstay. I mean, but the thing is like having human umpires is this, it keeps the game
part of baseball.
Part of baseball. But the thing is like, I don't expect you to be consistent, but if you're going to be consistent at least a good high, like in the high 90s, roughly, I would say between 95 and above, and especially for both sides, because if you're going to call a ball for one guy and then a strike for the other, and it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense, that's a problem.
It is.
And I think that's where I think,
and some of it's an honest mistake.
No,
it's hard to see, based on the crouch or whatever, but some of it's hard to not call it anything else. It looks like bias.
Yeah.
Looks like you're angling for the home team, or you're angling for like, why though? Why are you doing that?
I mean, and I wouldn't say just in the pros. I've seen it in college. I mean, literally, there was a game where
I understand there's like home team calls.
Yes. I mean, things of that nature. And you kind of like wondering what the hell is going on. It's like, I'll never forget. I don't know if you've seen the video of it where in a college game, literally the guy gets called out and the ball is like way over here.
Yeah.
And calls a strike. And I'm like, what? And it's like, he pretty much just wanted to go home.
Right.
And then you kind of wonder what the hell. So I feel like it's like, look, I know this is tedious to you. I mean, you're here for X amount of hours and all that stuff, but this is your job.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to trade out, you can trade out. You got 3 other guys out there.
Well, not only that, now you know that balls and strikes can be called by the computer. So if you want to keep your job, you better do a better job of it.
Right.
Because they're just going to flip the switch and replace you.
Yeah. Because pretty much you'll just be out in the field all day. Because we don't need you. And then
and even that eventually could be replaced by AI, to review whether the tag was on or not. Yeah, software can see that in a video for sure.
I remind you that replaying it now.
Yeah, not in real time.
Yeah, real time. Yeah,
give it a year. So
we'll see.
Last week we talked about what would we call the program or the thing that does the balls and strikes, the calling, but we figured out it had to be called ump. It had to stand for ump or ump. Yeah, it had to spell ump, right? So the ump ruled it a strike after careful deliberation. Best thing I could come up with was the umpire mimicking program. Ump.
Okay, that worked. That might work.
Still includes the word umpire, but it at least spells ump.
Yes.
And it mimics the ump.
Yes.
All right. So there you go. That brings us to the end of the show.
Yes.
So we want to say thank you to James for being so awesome. Go check out elephantaudiobooks.com and get your book on there. Thanks to our radio partners, Masson, HCS, ESPN, 8 The Ocho, all those guys. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, maybe. Don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as RFK Jr.'s brain. All right, Brian, where can they get you and your shows on the social medias?
You can check out No Filter Sports currently on YouTube. And also the audio version will be on SoundCloud. But you can check No Filter Sports Instagram at no_filter_sports_2.5. I've been told to change it, but I probably won't.
No.
So that's
it's a brand.
It's a brand.
That's right.
So, but this month's feature, we're talking about the betting scandal and, of course, the NFL and WNBA drafts that just transpired.
Very exciting. All right. And you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RibChipChat. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night here on Beltway Radio and Beyond at 9:30. I'm Chip. That's Brian. James was here. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and Beyond. Sweeps.
Chip Chat Radio, and we're your host. I hope you enjoy what we promote. Chip Chat Radio, we got so much, so give you the news in case you didn't know. Keep the public well informed of the topic. Sometimes the news today is hard to process. That's why Chip and Tess will help you out, let you know